Welcome to another edition of Ask the AD. Glad you could join us. Director of Athletics, Gene Taylor. I'm Brian Smoller. We've got plenty of topics to get to. We last saw you in December of 21, and now here we are in February, looking forward to the end of basketball, beginning of baseball, and construction projects underway. We'll get into all those things, I suppose.
Guess Happy New Year to everybody that we haven't had a chance to say Happy New Year.
We really haven't been able to do that. It's good to see locally numbers starting to go down as far as illness, and hopefully people are staying safe and staying warm out there. Let's start with construction, because even despite frigid temperatures and snowstorms and ice and all that, everyone's going like gangbusters out there when it comes to football and the volleyball Olympic Training Center.
Yeah, it's, Brian, appreciate that. It's real exciting to, see it starting to unfold. There's a lot of groundwork being done. You're not going to see anything being erected out, up in the air yet, but there was a lot of, underground work that had to be completed. But, right now things are going well. Obviously, the indoor football facility will be completed in next October of 2022, and the volleyball Olympic Training Center will be in June of 23. So, but driving by it is always exciting to see construction going on.
Yeah, and Kimball, before too long, also we'll see the next phase of the North End Corridor also come along the line. This project, obviously, the football indoor has a lot of people concerned about parking. So I guess that most people seem to have been updated, at least, on what the plan is.
Our Ahern Fund staff have really done a tremendous job of working through it, talking to folks on the east side, kind of getting their sense of what they would like to see happen. There have been letters that have been mailed out. There's been a few folks on the west side that'll be impacted, but not as many on the east side. But the folks on the east side should be getting letters to explain to them how to go about, getting a different parking spot. I will say that anybody who's currently in a reserve spot on the east side will still have a reserve spot on the east side. We have captured what was known as Lot 9, was kind of the general admission lot, and that is now a reserve lot that we're going to be able to capture and pick up a lot of those spaces that we're losing, and then some additional parking as well. So all that should be hitting the mail. If they haven't already, they should be getting it this week. If they have questions, certainly talk to the Ahern Fund staff, but everybody who currently has a reserve spot will have a reserve spot on the east side.
Which is important to remember, and anybody that's traveled around the Big 12 or around the country to other games, you look and see K-State's parking situation. It's hard sometimes. We're here, we see it all the time, but boy, it's far and above better than almost everybody else.
It really is, and I've been fortunate. We all have been to go to a lot of different stadiums, and you go to West Virginia and you see people parking on the side of the street miles away, and they're walking in. And so not only the parking that we have here right next to Bill Snyder Family Stadium, but the additional lots that we have around still are very, very in close proximity, and that's a good thing.
All right, let's transition out of this and get to our first fan question of the day. This comes from @C_Banning on Twitter. He's asking about, in fact, what you're wearing today, the gray pullovers that Bruce Weber and Jeff Mitty have been wearing, and also an apparel question about the baseball jerseys that can be purchased this year. So I guess the item that you're wearing, how is that available?
Right now, what's great about our fan base is they see what our coaches and our teams are wearing, and they want it immediately in the retail perspective. And we have great retailers that work with us all the time, and we try to predict which are going to be hot items and which aren't. But from the retail world, they have to order so many pieces that they want to be cautious to make sure it is going to be a hot item before they go out and order in bulk, and all of a sudden they have a bunch of items that aren't good sellers. So, and some of the things like jerseys are really expensive, so they have to manage that very, very closely from a retail perspective. But we work with them, on a regular basis to say, hey, here's an item our fans are requesting, and then they start to look at that, and hopefully they'll get out on the retail market at some point. But I can't say that everything you see that's being worn is going to be retail, but we work with them as much as we can to get as much out there.
That's right. And I should mention that the lavender stuff, which has been immensely popular here the last year or two, there was one note passed along from our folks on the fan experience and marketing side that there is quite a backlog, because those are specially made in Asia, and as you know, with COVID and shipping and all those sorts of things, Nike's a little bit backed up, so they're going to get those. Just keep checking retailers for more of that information, and we'll see. This kind of ties into another question that comes up quite a bit that we were emailed about, and that's football uniforms. People want to know, are we ever going to get different football uniforms? Hey, I'm a lover of this old traditional standard. I know you are as well, but what can you tell us there?
Yeah, I think our equipment staff, continues to talk to coach and see what's out there that they like. We changed a few things this first couple of years. This year we're very traditional in what we wore. Almost every game we wore a traditional uniform. So, but I do think there's a willingness. It's just, again, it's a matter of finding the right look what's coach feel comfortable with, what does the team feel comfortable with, and then that's, like I said, about a 2-year cycle to, by the time you figure out what you want, by the time you get it in production and get it here, because you're ordering 100 plus, more than that, because you have multiple numbers. But so I know our equipment staff has been working. I don't know what they've come up with. Hopefully we'll see something soon.
I think the concern that gets mentioned a lot is people think that gives us a step down in recruiting. It doesn't seem like that's the case for Chris and his staff.
I don't think I have not heard that it's an issue. I mean, we do have a lot of things that we offer in terms of our facilities and all the great things. I don't know that uniform is the top of a recruit's list. I think it's kind of a cool thing that, if they come here, that they can be a part of. But I don't think it's something that's number one on their list in terms of why they come to K-State.
We'll get into what could also be factoring into recruiting and NIL in a moment. But first, let's go to another question that's a little bit more lighthearted. But this one is from @_Carson Marshall, who asks, what's the likelihood of having a first ever boxing event or match at Kansas State University? And really kind of along with that, outside events held at K-State facilities, how much do you look at those sorts of things?
Well, I think part of the things we're talking about with the Volleyball Olympic Training Center, the volleyball venue, is an esports opportunity, and make sure we talking to architects that we have the infrastructure that if we wanted to host esports events, big events, that's something we would look at. Other maybe smaller concert venues, who knows, maybe a boxing opportunity. I mean, when I was at the Naval Academy, we had a brigade boxing that was phenomenal. I mean, it was absolutely one of the best things, but they were, obviously trained in that combat. But I don't know. I mean, I think that the volleyball venue gives us another arena of a smaller version to maybe host some different events, and we'll look at all that. And that's certainly things we've talked about as we designed it, as what other things besides volleyball, knowing that that's the number one priority, make sure we don't take anything away from our student athletes.
All right, so speaking of student athletes, NIL, it's a hot button issue in college athletics right now. One of the discussion points here recently has been around guardrails. Should there be guardrails in place for NIL and the collectives that people want to form? I'm sure there's K-Staters that want to form a collective, which is kind of a source, a resource for kids who with NIL. What's your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. I actually just got off a phone call this morning with our ADs and presidents, and that was one of the main topics. It is a little bit wild west right now. I wouldn't say a little bit. It's very much the wild west in terms of what's going on in the name, image, and likeness space. That being said, I do wish we would have put guardrails around. From the very beginning, we didn't, and so can we get it back in the box in some areas? Also, one of the things we do have is we have donors and friends of our program that want to help. They understand that they also want to do it the right way. We had a great meeting with our National Leadership Circle donors. We had a panel that we put together, and we talked about that. We talked about collectives. We talked about how to do it the right way, that it can't be a recruiting inducement, but what are ways that we can set up opportunities for our athletes that know if they come here, there will be name, image, and likeness opportunities for them. And that's what we're working on right now. And so we need to be in the name, image, and likeness space. Our coaches want us to be. Our athletes come here, and it's a benefit. We already have athletes that are benefiting from it in a great, in really, really positive ways. And we just need to make sure we help our donors and folks that want to help us to make sure they do it the right way. And that's what we're working on now.
I think most K-State fans will appreciate that, being able to do the process as mindful of what rules there are in place as there can be. All right, you mentioned talking with ADs and presidents across the league. What can you update us about the Big 12? There's a lot of conversation about new schools coming in and when they get here. Yeah,
so we're pretty much believe that the new members are going to be in the 23-24 season. So we'll have 14 schools in 23, 24, 24, 25, and then we'll go back to 12. So right now we're working on the various scheduling options, whether divisions. In football, we will do divisional play. We don't know what those divisions will look like yet. Because we host a championship, if you have more than 10 teams, you have to do divisions. We have some folks working on the basketball schedules and how many games and all that. We think right now we're focused on 9 conference games in football, I think 18 in the 2 basketballs. And so we're just starting to have those conversations. We're getting a little deeper as to what that looks like. Our goal is to present this as an AD group to each other to vote on in our March meetings, or talk about them in our March meetings and vote on final approval of those divisions in May. But it is being talked about, and that's kind of the plan right now.
Last thing on that, you mentioned 9 conference games. There are some conversations from other leagues about reducing conference games down to 8. Do you keep an eye on what happens with other leagues in that mindset, or does it not matter?
No, it's very much a part of the conversation is what are the other schools or the other conferences doing. For us, we have a great situation where we play 9. We have the 10th game being a Power 5 non-conference opponent, and we like that makeup right now. If teams go to 8, that could open up some opportunities from other teams. But if the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the ACC make this alliance, then there are going to be fewer teams to be able to find those games. So that's all. We have to consider all that when we talk about it.
All the factors that go into it, you can see that it's quite a lot of busy work. Appreciate the time. This was a little bit longer than normal, but a lot of good stuff in here. Appreciate it.
Well, Jay's, he left, but No.
That's right. That's right. A nod here to Jay Mullines, who for 15 years helped us out in overseeing a lot of this stuff.
Miss him.
No doubt. Thanks to Preston Kerner for his work putting this all together, and of course Kenny Lanou and all the other folks that have helped put input in on this. Gene, we'll see you here in about a month.
Thanks, appreciate it, Brian.
All right, keep those questions coming on social media. We'll talk to you again soon on Ask the AD.